Do you ever wake up in the morning with a sense of productivity debt? That dreadful feeling where you somehow need to prove your very right to exist on this planet by grinding through a never-ending to-do list, only to find that it's filled up the next day. Well, this seems to be a pretty common feeling, and it really gets down to the heart of what it means to have self-worth. And if it's true that AI is going to take all of our jobs in the next few decades anyway, maybe this is actually an opportunity for us humans to find alternative, more joyful, more sustainable ways of measuring our self-worth rather than just productivity and achievement alone. So in this pondering, let's talk about productivity debt and more joyful ways to find a feeling of self-worth. So stay tuned. Hi folks, welcome to another pondering video here in the Deepdive channel. So this term productivity debt I discovered in this fantastic book by the author Oliver Burkeman, Meditations for Mortals, 4 weeks to embrace your limitations and make time for what counts. Thanks to my business partner Josh from Resilient Roots, who lent me this book. It is, really good book. Found lots of things that resonated with me. The author, Oliver Burkeman, he used to be a journalist for the Guardian newspaper, was stuck in the grind culture and the productivity nerd culture, realized it was making him miserable, and now he writes, I guess, about philosophical things and how to escape that mindset. So loads of this stuff in this book resonated with me, and I wanted to share a few things here. But this topic has also kind of come up in a few things in my life. Directly in my life, and this book has kind of helped me realize a lot of that, but also in our recent Resilient Roots live call last month, Pondering was talking about winter resilience strategies, and a common topic was talking about people's energies during winter. Now some people had higher energies, and especially people who were laborers, did some sort of trade. Often they found they preferred working in winter. But lots of people, like me, get an energy slump in winter. And then this brings up the sense of productivity and a kind of that sense of dread if you just don't have the energy of it. But our culture and our economy demands year-round constant productivity. And then this, brought up topics about self-worth. We had a few people, especially myself and a few other men in the tribe, have this sense of having an internal sergeant major, an internal judge in your mind that's always shouting at you when you're not being productive, or calling you lazy and things like that. So this topic has come up quite a lot, and I wanted to try kind of narrow it down into this term productivity debt. Now, maybe I'll read a quote from the book before I kind of share a bit about some of my feelings getting caught up in the YouTube game, which folks who follow me on my Patreon page, where I do monthly behind the scenes. Last month's video was a bit of a venting about the frustrations of the YouTube game and how that demands constant creative productivity with very little return. But anyway, let me share a quote from this book. It's in chapter day 4, Against Productivity Debt, on the Power of a Done List. Now there was a couple of sentences here. When you read a book and sometimes a sentence just like slaps you in the face of just like, oh Jesus, yeah, that's definitely me. And this particular sentence actually helps me kind of wake up from a unconscious belief I had in my head that was actually making me very miserable. So I'll share it. Many people these days report the feeling that they begin each morning in a kind of productivity debt, which they must struggle to pay off over the course of the day, in hopes to return to a zero balance by the time evening comes. If they fail, or worse, don't even try, It's as though they haven't quite justified their existence on this planet. If this describes you, there's a good chance that, like me, you belong to the gloomy bunch psychologists label insecure overachievers, which is a diplomatic way of saying that our accomplishments, impressive as they may be sometimes, are driven ultimately by feelings of inadequacy. For example, maybe believe that you'll have earned your right to exist only when you attain a certain level of social standing or income or academic qualifications. Or perhaps you've tethered your self-esteem to the most crazy-making standard of all, realizing your potential, which means you will never get to rest. Because how can you ever be sure there's not a little more potential left to realize? Now that bit hit me. How can you be sure there's not a little bit more potential to realize? Certainly in my early 20s, listening to motivational playlists in the gym and chasing you got to become your full potential and I'm definitely an insecure overachiever. Now it's funny when I've shared a bit about my Resilient Roots curriculum on this Deepdive channel. I shared my Tree of Needs learning map, and already on the Resilient Roots course, I've got nearly 100 lessons on the bottom 2 levels, all to do with meeting our basic needs, survival needs, basic, core body temperature, water, foods, all about becoming self-reliant in that and exploring security through flow and through martial arts. So I have over 100 lessons in that, and I've been fleshing out the next 2 modules, which are going to be about belonging and self-esteem. Now belonging, that's coming out of me quite easily. I should have some new lessons in the next 6 months or a year. With the help of the tribe, we're kind of doing it as a collective, using the collective intelligence of everyone on these live calls. But fruit of self-esteem, those lessons I was finding harder to pin down, to really okay, how do you create a self-reliance method on self-esteem? And what I realized actually through trying to create the lessons was that the reason why it wasn't coming from me very easily is because I had some self-esteem issues that I needed to overcome. And this insecure overachiever, that with that sentence, when I read that sentence, I was just like, oh shit, that's definitely me. And maybe that's speaking to you as well, where it's that sense that you're not worthy, maybe you're not loved, maybe you don't have the right to belong, you're not, I don't know, a man or whatever label you might call yourself. You're not that until you've achieved enough. Now, you could blame many things in this. You could blame our culture, you could blame parts of our religion, you could blame capitalism and consumerism, which is definitely a big part of it, right? Consumerism plays on our sense of being inadequate, and capitalism obviously demands constant productivity. So we could argue about who's to blame, but what you can all agree upon is that it's not a very fun existence. And you could argue that it's not needed, or it's at very least it's not sustainable. You can do it for a little bit. Now, in my personal life, getting caught up in the YouTube game is definitely, definitely is summed up by this productivity debt on both an internal and external level. On the internal level, Oliver Burkeman has kind of described it well. It's that feeling of that grind culture where you're always achieving and it's all about smashing through the to-do list. But then the day you're always this anxiety-provoking and narrow-minded focus of like smashing through this to-do list, and any distraction, any spontaneous, suggestions from a loved one, or beauty, or beauty in the landscape, or just life, just the spontaneity of life, that almost becomes a distraction that needs to wait until you've smashed through a to-do list, and then maybe you will have time for some spontaneity. But on the external level, productivity debt, like the YouTube game, and I guess with musicians, the Spotify game, or just any of these big tech spaces where creators share. I know myself and loads of creators have really just burnt out in the last year or so, because it's never ending, right? You make a video and it might be a big success. You might make some money, you might get some attention, it might give you some opportunities, and you've poured your heart and soul into it, and then you released it and you're like, yeah, and then you need to do it again, and then again. And then if you're relying on that for your income, or especially when you're dealing with sponsors and they care about their click-through rate and their audience, how much views you're going to get, and if you don't get enough views and you need to do another sponsorship integration, it's never ending, and then it destroys the very joy of creating in the first place. So this last year I really hit this wall with YouTube, and as I said, I've got a few YouTube friends that have also hit this wall, and now with AI generated content, where people can just spew endless stuff into YouTube, diluting the content. What hope do real humans have to even get their content to the viewers that would appreciate it? So as I said to folks on my Patreon page, I'm going to be changing things up a bit. I'm not going to be doing my Fandabi Dozy videos the same. I will still be doing them, but when I feel like them, when that arises. I'm not living to the productivity game of big tech companies anymore. Just not doing it. So there's a bit of my personal experience with the productivity game and my insecure overachiever. So maybe this speaks to some of you folks listening. But what can we do about it? Where does our self-worth come from? So self-worth is part of self-esteem. Now, if it's true that, artificial intelligence will take many of people's jobs in the next few decades, and I know many people, really their main sense of worth is through their work, is through how much they can earn or how much they can achieve. And we saw this over the COVID-19 lockdowns, right? Lots of people couldn't work and lots of people thrived. Lots of people used an opportunity of having furlough and having some space to do stuff that they ever wanted. But I know lots of people that really suffered. And even if say that they were financially okay, I know lots of people weren't, but even if they were financially okay, it was the removing of the very thing that they were gaining a sense of worth, or maybe distracting them from their own mind, I don't know. So, I mean, you could discuss where the exact origins of this productivity debt. Maybe it's a deep human mindset of preparing for winter, preparing for the future, right? Maybe it could be blamed as some, I don't know, Protestant work ethic, or you have to prove yourself to get into the next life, or whatever it is. Or maybe it's your parents. Your parents might have been overachievers, and maybe they didn't give you love unless you achieved something. Maybe you didn't get recognition until you did something, and then that's when you got love. And maybe their parents did it to them, and maybe their parents did it to them, and on it goes. So we could discuss in the comments about what you folks think about is the origins of it, but maybe it's not very helpful because it's probably multiple things, this sense of productivity debt. What is more helpful maybe is what can we do about it? So I want to share a few things. Maybe I'll narrow it down to 3 things. The first one is from Oliver Burkeman's book, and he talks about, rather than, grinding through a done list, his whole book is about embracing your finitude and your limitations. And instead of having a to-do list, you have a done list. So let me explain. So in my last pondering video, I talked a bit about overcoming that feeling of hopelessness in a world where it just seems like everything's going to shit. And realizing that as humans, as individuals, we are limited with how much time we actually have, how much attention we can actually pay. And this is both terrifying but really liberating when you just come to the point that actually, I don't have that much time. And the insanity of the productivity debt is rooted in a sense that you actually have all the time in the world. That actually you, in theory, you could run 3 different businesses and, have 5 different hobbies and still be a good partner and still have friends and all this stuff. But the reality is that no, you've only got time to maybe do a fraction of those things, or you only have to do a fraction of those few things well. So when you realize that, then you realize that it's grinding through a to-do list with maybe a subconscious feeling that maybe you'll eventually get it all done. And it's like, hey, I did it all. And now I can relax. You suddenly wake up and be like, actually, that's never going to happen. This is literally impossible. So when you wake up to that, okay, I will never get everything done. So what can I do? And this is where Oliver Burkeman talks about every day, just move a few meaningful things to a done list. Now, of course, we all still need to earn incomes and maybe, look after children or whatever your responsibilities are. But rather than seeing it as a list that you need to conquer, which is ultimately impossible, you just see what needs to be done, and at the end of the day, rather than thinking of it as your battle against an infinite to-do list, it's like, hey, today I did some things, and these are like, you've collected some dones, which I quite like. Now, you could argue that's still kind of in a productivity mindset. So here's some other things. Measuring days in terms of presence rather than productivity. Focusing on attention rather than achievement. So, presence over productivity, I'm pretty sure that's an Alan Watts quote. Measure days on levels of presence, not levels of productivity. So this is something I've been trying, and it can be simply, it's almost like, I see it as little acts of rebellion against our productivity culture, against our endless need to produce and to share things. And it could be simply like, rather than trying to get to inbox 0 on my emails or trying to reply to all my messages, I'm actually just gonna stare at the window and just watch the clouds. Or sit in the woods and just watch the leaves fall. Now, you could say, the mind walls pop up and say, oh, that's a waste of time. You could be doing something. But there's the root of the productivity debt again. But in that stillness, you'll find something much more valuable and much more everlasting than that very short sense of satisfaction to know that you've done everything on your list. So being present. You can also do this in activities, right? Playing music, archery, swinging a stick about, doing staff flows, right? There's a sense of timelessness and measuring a sense of worth by your level of presence and attention. Third thing, which is especially relevant in our social media culture where we're always doing things for the sake of sharing it. We're always doing an activity, maybe mainly so that we can take a picture of it and share it on our social media. So here's a challenge for you. The third thing to overcome productivity debt is actually do something privately. Don't share it. Could be cooking a meal, could be going out on an adventure, and just don't take a picture of it. Don't film it. Just experience it. Be there. I found myself increasingly doing this where, again, getting caught up in the productivity debt of YouTube, my passion for going out in the woods and practicing survival skills or going on adventures then became a chore. It became a job. It became thinking about audio and the right shot and getting the right story and is it going to be entertaining enough to get enough views? And I was actually, no, sack it. I just want to go back to going in the woods. So increasingly I've just been going out on trips, on little camping trips and Highlander trips and hunting trips and not bringing the camera. And it's been lovely. So do something and don't share it. The final one, the fourth thing, which maybe tries to strike at the heart of self-worth, is realizing that you belong already. Technically, you belong already. What does that mean? So self-worth, what is the root of that feeling that we need to prove ourselves? It's ultimately linked to that we are social animals, that our survival depends on being part of a group, a tribe, a village. And absolutely in the terms of, say, a small village, or even just you're in a survival situation with 10 people. Say there's a plane crash or something. If you're not pulling your weight, then people aren't going to like you. And maybe they'll just let you die or won't look after you if you're not contributing, right? So in that sense, it makes total sense. This fear of finding worth through productivity. And, we should all, in that sort of tangible sense, it makes sense that we should all find our niche that we can contribute to the tribe. But when the tribe is billions of people, when the tribe is looking at your phone and seeing the overwhelming things that you could be or could provide, then that survival need, that survival behavior that's rooted in tangible tribal, interactions is completely thrown out of kilter, completely confused. So when you find yourself stuck in that, and that sense of belonging, that fear of not belonging is getting caught up in this huge productivity, social media, consumerism, capitalist, complexity. It's just realizing right down to the root of your attention that you already belong. What does that mean? I'm sitting in this woods right now, alone. Me and the camera. And I look around, and what do I see? I see lots of trees. I see blaeberries, moss, mushrooms. These are all made out of trillions of countless atoms, some of which also make up me. And the sense that I needed to grind through a to-do list to prove that I could exist is needless, because the fact of the matter is, I do. At least for this finite amount of time before I return to the moss and the mushrooms and the trees. So what do you do with that finite time? Something joyful, something loving, something present. So there's my pondering. That's all I've got, folks. But yeah, let me know in the comments. What's your thoughts? Do you feel this sense of productivity debt? Are you an insecure overachiever like me? Yeah, and what would your methods be to find alternative senses of self-worth, which is actually a very relevant topic with the rise of AI. If you want to join in the conversation, as always, join me on Resilient Roots. We will be some of the future ponderings. I plan to tackle self-esteem. What are the roots of self-esteem? Looking at our primal brains. How, the fear of being kicked out of the tribe. And how the modern world is confusing us and how can we navigate that. We will be doing some ponderings in the next few months. And as always, there's always the practical, how to light a fire, how to pack a rucksack full of basic kit, how to experience flow through staff martial arts. It's all there. But thanks for listening, folks. Thanks for tuning into this pondering. Much love, and know, folks, that you are already worthy to exist and that you already belong. Deepdive.